Well, I'm joined now by the author and historian, Kate Williams. Good evening to you. And you must have had a very, very busy week, but we're not going to start with that story. We're going to
There
start...
are other stories.
There are other stories
This
that story. This is The Independent, and this is the education story, the GCSEs, and the fact that pupils feel betrayed because they were expecting certain grades and got much lower grades.
If it hadn't been for Prince Harry, this would have been the big story. I mean, this would have been leading on the Mail, on probably the Express as well. I mean, this is a big story, the fact that these GCSE grades, for the first time, went down. We're so used to, on Thursday morning, waking up to the radio and the TV saying, oh, GCSE grades are up again. Not this year. They were down. And many of the head teachers are very, very unhappy about the fact that simply, if you'd taken your GCSE in English in the winter, you would have probably got a C for certain results, for about 43%. Now you get a D. And they're saying it's just not fair. And these grades, these boundaries have been artificially moved so that the grades went down, so that they were massaging the results to make them seem better. And Michael Gove is completely being blamed for this. The head teachers are very unhappy, and some of them are suggesting legal action. There's been even talk that they're going to be outside demonstrating this week. They're really very angry about this, and it's not often when teachers get angry, they really get angry.
Well, next Tuesday they are planning some form of action.
Yes.
I suppose the main thrust of their argument is that they've predicted the grades for their students, so they've been with them throughout their studies and said to them, you're doing really well, you should get an A, and then possibly a C, or predictions of a C, possibly a D, which would affect college places, which is quite serious.
Exactly, affect college places, affect university places. I mean, this is absolutely crucial, especially for a GCSE such as English. This isn't a small GCSE that not many people take. I mean, obviously everyone takes English, absolutely vital. Many people, of course, wanting to go on to take English A-level, more likely to do so with a C than a D. I mean, it's a D in GCSE English isn't always a preparation to take it at A-level. So this is, I think, a terrible and big story, and I think it really was perhaps too late to change the boundaries so soon before the GCSEs were taken. No one expected this, and it simply, I think, isn't fair, and many people feel it isn't fair, and I think there is going to be a lot of complaints and a lot of legal action, if not from teachers, also from parents as well, who didn't expect this either. And I think students do have the right to know roughly if they get a certain grade, if they get a certain percentage, what grade they're going to get. So I think we have to, I know that Michael Gove wants to get rid of the GCSE. He feels it's an exam that is useless, it's become devalued, but this isn't the way to do it. I think we have to wait, we have to bring in things later. It's a bit like, in the Olympics when they change the scoring systems. They don't change these just before the Olympics, just before the Olympic gymnastics. They don't say, actually everyone, this beam cartwheel means less than that beam cartwheel. They wait just after the Olympics, so everyone's got 4 years to get ready again. This is too soon.
So do you suggest perhaps a phased change? I mean, how would you implement a change? We've had the perennial argument that GCSEs are getting easier and easier and there's dumbing down. So obviously the government decided that a change was needed. How would you bring in a change without bringing it in straight away?
Well, I don't feel GCSEs are getting easier and easier. I think actually students are getting better, and students are getting more, things like coursework, things like preparation. It seems very strange that if house prices rise, that's a good thing, but if exam results rise, that's a bad thing. And what it is, I think, is that teachers are doing better, they're working harder. What I do think is important is that we have one assessment agency. I think the fact that we have different assessment agencies sometimes means that teachers can choose different types of exams that are seen as easier, that students might find easier. I think we need to go back to having one assessment agency, one qualifications agency, and within that, I just don't feel that GCSEs are easier. I think they are a good exam. I think that we don't want to go back to O-level and CSE. I just think that was a very unfair system. I mean, the principle was really in the CSE, you simply couldn't get higher than a C because that was what you've been prepared for. Yes, if you were lucky, your school might push you up and say, yes, you've done terribly well in your mock at 15, go and take the O-level. But not necessarily. They didn't have to do that, and some schools didn't have the resources to do that. So simply to say at 13, which is when you choose your exams, you can't get any higher than a C in maths or science or English. teenagers change a huge amount from 13 to 15, massively, and their intellect changes as well. It's just not fair to classify people at 13 to stream them like that. I just don't agree. I think the GCSE is a good exam, and I think that simply we need to have a bit more regulation of qualification.
Well, we shall see
agencies.
what the future holds. If O-levels are brought in, they will be by another name, so we shall see. But lots of appeals to go through, and we'll also see what happens with those, whether people get their work regraded. Let's have a look at the Telegraph now, and the story that I think you want to have a look at is the Heathrow expansion. This is a story that's been rumbling on for some time, and we're now getting some comment from Grant Shapps on that. He's put his head above the parapet.
And actually talked about it. Of course, you know, this is the bank holiday weekend. Lots of us are going in and out of Heathrow at the moment. And Grant Shapps is saying the way to kickstart our economy, we've got to do something big. And this big thing we've got to do is having an expansion of Heathrow or even a new airport east of London. And this is a big problem. It's a big question. And especially for the Tory party, many people whose constituencies lie within the Heathrow area, of course, who are going to fight this, they're very against this. And of course, the Greens are against this as well. And I wonder whether this is too simplistic. I thought, is this really the way that we need to show ourselves, in Grant Shapps' words, a great trading nation? I think we just look at the Olympics and the amount of people that went back and forth in the Olympics, it worked out beautifully. Yes, Heathrow is crowded, but it usually works out well. I think the majority.
So do you not think that an expansion is necessary?
I don't think it's necessary at the moment. I think at the moment Heathrow is, you know, an incredibly busy airport, and this is not the way, I think, to kickstart the economy. I think this money can be spent in better ways.
But the Business Society is saying that really we do need an expansion because we need to be able to compete on a level playing field with other countries.
Well, I think, you know, we do get a lot of money through air, aviation, through freight. Of course, we're a great exporter. Increasingly, we import much more than we do export. But at the moment, I do feel that if money is so tight, I don't think money should be spent. I don't think this is where we should be spending our money. And I think a new runway for Heathrow is also going to take such a long time to do. It's not going to kickstart the economy overnight. It's going to take a long time to build a new airport. That simply isn't going to have this quick impact. We need something faster.
Mr. Shapps, apparently, incidentally, is an amateur pilot. Anyway, he says, as a great trading nation, we need to have sufficient numbers of ports to get people and goods in and out.
I don't know. Yes, I imagine flying around in your own plane. Yeah, I once did have a plane lesson. I don't know how far I really got.
I had a flying lesson once, yes. I just found it just really disconcerting that you can't just pull over and park.
You can't just stop.
No,
I wasn't very good. I was a bit nervous.
I did enjoy it, though. Let's have a look at the Mail. This is your territory, a story you've been speaking about for very, very many hours.
A lot of coverage over Prince Harry, of course, and it's a story that's running and running. It's not just these few pictures. Charles summons Harry for crisis talks. He summoned him for a heart-to-heart. According to the Mail, I'm not quite sure where this information is coming from, because at the moment we don't know where Harry necessarily is. Of course, he's back in the United Kingdom. As to where exactly he is, we're not exactly sure, because he's due back on base on Monday. There's some talk that he's staying with friends. And he has talked to his father on the phone, but this is a big story. And what I think is, there's been a lot of coverage of this story. What I think is that if this is all we have, if these few grainy photos is all we have, then it's going to blow over. People forgive Harry. He's very popular at the moment. The royal family is very popular. But if there's more stories, if there's a suggestion this happens an awful lot, and Harry's a kind of wild party, I think eventually the people are going to get. We're going to get rather weary of it. And certainly, I think, Harry, there's going to be no more parties in Vegas. This kind of thing is often forgiven at 27, 37, 47. It's not so appealing. So I think Harry might be firmly going to knitting club from now on for summer holidays. I mean,
Is that the alternative? The advised alternative?
Well, I love knitting club.
Take up knitting.
But I do think that, everyone's saying, why? What was going on here? Why weren't the security detail looking after him? I mean,
well, the point is that the security detail, as we've mentioned before, are there to protect his life, not advise him on how to live it.
Exactly.
But do you think that they should cross that line naturally?
No, I don't think so. I absolutely agree with you. I think that the security detail, paid for by taxpayers' money, are there to make sure he's not killed, he's not kidnapped. They are not there to tell him, what to do and what not to do.
But doesn't he have other advisors apart from the security detail?
Well, of course he does, and everyone would have known he was going to Las Vegas because he's third in line to the throne. It's very important. You know exactly where he is at all times. So everyone knew he was going to Vegas, and what did we think was going to happen? That's not a knitting club in Vegas. Young single men don't go to Las Vegas to, you know, talk about classical music and opera. They go to have fun. They go to pool parties. They go to meet people. They go to drink. And, you know, this is exactly what's happened. So you can't blame the bodyguards that that's exactly what has happened. And yes, what I found particularly worrying, actually, is people saying, oh, well, you know, the bodyguards, the protection officers should take the phones off the women. They should stop the women having the phones. Well, I just don't agree. You cannot ask.
I'm not sure that's legal, actually, to take their property.
No, I mean, and I absolutely agree. And I think a woman going into a hotel room with a man, Prince Harry is an honourable man. I mean, he's completely honourable. No woman needs to fear being with him. Some people are not the same. So a woman on her own going into a hotel room with a man, she cannot give up her phone. She needs it with her. And yes, you might run the risk of having your photo taken, but this is today's modern world when camera phones, you can just look like you're sending a text and snap, snap, snap. So I think if we don't see much more of this story, Prince Harry's going to be all right. But he will, I think the palace is going to start saying, you know, time to settle down, Harry, you know, time to get married around the age of 30. And perhaps next summer he's going to be on holiday in, you know, Balmoral, not in
I thought
Vegas.
you were going to say next summer we might see another royal wedding.
Well, maybe so, maybe so. I mean, this whole kind of scenario reminds me, until the Sun printed them, of in 1936 when the King Edward VIII, was having an affair with Mrs. Simpson. The American press printed it. The world knew about it. British press stayed out of it.
Lockdown.
Absolutely quiet.
Kate, for the moment, thank you.
Thank you.
And Kate will be back again for the full press preview at 11:30. Also joining us will be Jonathan Isserby, Political Director of the Taxpayers Alliance.